How does one start to understand the value of his sacrifice in life? All the accolades and the awards? No. All the money and the fame? No. It's through all the suffering and pain to make his voice heard. It's from others' love and support which gives him strength beyond measure. It's his action that plants seeds, which bears fruit, which in turn makes a difference in the lives of others. Now, what do these roots have in common? The Spencer Haywood Rule.
I am Spencer Haywood, Naismith Basketball Hall of Famer, Olympic gold medalist, and the U.S. Supreme Court Haywood versus the NBA, which enabled players to leave college or high school to come into the NBA at an early age. I was born in Silver City, Mississippi. And remember, there is no silver, and it wasn't a city. It was 300 people in the cotton fields of Mississippi. And I was born into indentured slavery. I know it sounds strange in today's society, but that's the way it was. I was born in 1949, and my first memory of life in itself was looking up at a cotton field, because my mother had me on her sack of cotton, and as I was just maturing into a fully grown baby, I was just looking at cotton, and that was our life. And I often wondered, why was I placed there, and how did I get out of there to the Supreme Court and to the NBA and to the Olympics? I look at it like this. You know, when I was 9 and 10 years old, I was picking cotton, and I wanted to be the best cotton picker that state had ever seen. So that was my big dream. It wasn't basketball, it wasn't music or anything, because all I knew was cotton. And so I know sometimes people look at it and say, well, you know, you're saying the Lord put you there, God put you there, the higher power put you there so you could develop into a basketball player. And I'll tell you why it happened like that. Because I was this young player, or this young person in the cotton field picking cotton. My legs developed, my strength developed, because I was pulling a sack of 100 pounds. And I was working from 2 rows of cotton. My hand and eye coordination were working. And so later on, when I started playing basketball, and I had started playing basketball, it came pretty easily to me, and I was well developed. I worked 12 hours a day as a kid. And so playing 2 hours a day practicing was nothing. That was like, I'm on vacation. When it came time for me to move from Mississippi to Detroit, I moved without my parents or without my mother, and my father had passed. So I moved to Detroit. I didn't have a place to stay. And before I got there, I had to go to Bowling Green State University, where my brother and his roommate was staying. And that's where I went to school for a minute, but I didn't enroll in the school. They had a tutoring section for me when I was 14. So what happened was, my brother said, let's go into Detroit. And we went into Detroit with the idea that I could play in this all-star game for high school players. And they had, of course, college players and pros at the Kronk outdoor facilities. And most people look at Kronk outdoor facilities like, well, you know, there was Tommy Hearns boxing and Lennox Lewis boxing and all of that. But no, Kronk had an outdoor facility where we had played tennis, baseball, and basketball. So I played in the first All-Star game up there at the age of 15. And those young men were in the locker room, and I was in the locker room with them. They were like, you know, man, I can't wear these Converse. I want some Adidas shoes and stuff. And I was looking at my shoes. I got on these Converse, but I had some cardboard in the bottom of my shoe. because my shoe had a big hole in the bottom. So I grabbed me a pair of those Converse and put them on, and I was like, oh my God, I feel like Superman. And so I went out and played. I got like 26 points, 15 rebounds, and Will Robinson, the high school coach that we were trying to showboat for, he came on the scene, and he ended up being the first black coach in NCAA Division I. And he came to me and was like, oh my God, you were this good and you could run all day. Can you play another game? I was like, yeah. And so we played against the college player. That all-star team was Cazzie Russell, all of the guys from Michigan State, Bill Buntins and all of those guys. So I played against those guys and I did pretty good. I had like 16 points and 8 rebounds. And then my brother got braggadocious and he said he could play against the pros. And so they threw me out there against the pros, and they had all of the great Piston players, Dave Bing, Reggie Harding, all of those great players out on the floor. And I got out there and I got 15 points and 8 rebounds again. And all of the coaches from high school were like, hey, we got to have this guy. We got to have this guy. And Will Robinson said, no, he's mine. And we're going to bring about a championship to this high school, because we had been out of championship contingency from the city of Detroit for 35 years. And then all of a sudden, I was registered at Pershing High School in my first year, and I didn't have my mom there because my mom was like, baby, you know, I'm not coming up to Detroit like that. I'm not gonna live in that city. What about my church? Your daddy built this church. I'm not leaving Silver City, Mississippi to come to Detroit where all of those people are moving so fast. I can't live like that. And so, so she signed over my papers for Will Robinson and James and Ida Bell to adopt me. And lo and behold, here I am in Pershing High School. And because I had been picking cotton, and in the South, when you're working in the fields, you don't get a chance to get fully educated because you're doing field work, you're a field hand. And so I had to prep up real fast. And then prepping up real fast, we found Dr. Wayne Dyer, who was teaching at the school. And Dr. Wayne Dyer said, I'll take him under my arm and I will teach him how to read and write over again. And I found an English teacher and taught me the voice and the talk and stuff. And then basketball, I mean, they looked at me, those students in high school looked at me like I was some kind of stupid country bunking, like I was Gomer Powell in Detroit. And so I always used to tell them, you're gonna like me when the basketball season come around. And lo and behold, the season came around and we just started playing and playing and playing. The first year we did real well. And the second year we won the Class A state championship. And I was off to college. And I wanted to go to college at the University of Michigan or Michigan State. But then I convinced myself that my mother needs to see me play. So I signed with the University of Tennessee out of high school. And when I got down there, the Kentucky coach, Adolph Rupp, and all of those coaches were like, you know, I was supposed to get the first guy, not Tennessee. And so there was a lot of issues that's going on, and we were debating whether we should stay, what we should do. And Will Robinson came down. I got a deal for you. I'm gonna send you off to this junior college on the border of Colorado and New Mexico. I didn't know. So I get down at this junior college, Trinidad State Junior College, and Will didn't tell us that we were 360 miles from Denver, 420 miles from Albuquerque. So I was out in the country. So I just played and studied because I knew if I maintained a B average, I could leave after 1 year. And lo and behold, this was 1968. and the 1968 Olympics were upon us. And right away, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he was Lou Alcindor at the time, said, no, I'm going to boycott the 68 Olympics. Elvin Hayes, Wesley Unseld, those guys signed a professional contract. And for you young folks out there, if you signed a professional contract, you could not play in the Olympics because it was all amateurs at the time. And so the Olympic Committee decided, well, let's bring a junior college team because we have all of the major universities, we have the NCAA, we have all of these schools coming in, but we need to not be sued by the junior college players. So they said, well, you got to be a sophomore. And Jerry Tarkanian, who was the coach at UNLV, says, well, our best player is a freshman. We want him to come down. So we go down to Hutchinson, Kansas, and these guys are in the middle of shooting in cold blood with Truman Capote. So we're like on the movie set looking at this guy shooting in cold blood, and we would had our tryouts in Hutchinson, Kansas. So I killed all the junior college players, and they developed a team from that junior college team. Let's take them down to Albuquerque and showcase my junior college team. So we went down there and we started playing against all of the NCAA Division I, Division II, III, and NIA, and military, and we killed all of them. It was like all of the renegades was in this junior college team. And so Hank Iber was the head coach of the Olympic team. He said to Jerry Tarkanian, look, whatever you do, don't get that boy hurt, because I think we're going to take him first as the #1 player for the Olympic team. And so I'm trying to figure out why my time is getting cut down. But they were trying to preserve me. And then when they selected the team, all of a sudden they said, Spencer Haywood. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do for a birth certificate? Because we had to go to Russia and to Yugoslavia and different places, and I had no birth certificate. So we get on the phone and say, Mom, what are we going to do about the birth certificate? And she said, baby, don't you worry about a thing. I got your birth certificate right here in my Bible on the John 20:21. And the coach and the Olympic Committee was like, well, just send the Bible up and we'll get it all certified. Oh, no. We are not going to send my Bible out of this house. I got to take it to church. So you can come down here and take a picture of it. So the Jackson Daily News in Mississippi, they send this contingency down to the home, to our home in Silver City, and they took a picture of it. They get it back to the vital statistics, and they look at what the midwife had put on, because I was born by a midwife in my mom's bed. So it wasn't like, everybody called it natural birth these days, but it was a midwife. And so she spelled my name Spency. And so we had a problem because I was known as Spencer in the world, but then the birth certificate said Spency. And so we had to get all of that straight. And then we were off to Russia, Yugoslavia, and came back to America. We played against the Knicks. We played against Oscar Robertson and the Cincinnati Royals, and on into Mexico City. We arrived in Mexico City in 1968, and the coaches and everybody's telling us, well, look, they just had a meeting with Martin Luther King, Jessie Owens, and all of those great. And I was like, yeah, so what? So anyway, because I'm still young. I'm a Mississippi boy. I don't know all of this, historical stuff that's going on. And then we went over to the commissary, and there was George Foreman over there just pushing food in his head. And he was like, hey man, me and you can hang because we the youngest dudes on the team, because we were 19. And so we started hanging, and then Tommie Smith and John Carlos was like this fly dude from New York. He was talking. And by the way, John Carlos and Tommie Smith are the guys who did the Black Glove in the protests for human rights and the 68 Olympics. So those guys was talking, and John was just talking up a storm. And then we know we had the big meeting where we was doing a survey for who was going to protest and if there's going to be a protest. Once they voted, Martin Luther King and Jessie and all of them voted not for us to protest. But then the players decided we were going to have our little meeting. Then Jessie Owens came into the room, and we were like, oh my God, Jessie Owens. And so he started talking about, well, you know, you got to stand up for America and you got to do these things. And so we were like, yeah, that old Uncle Tom dude, what is he talking about? And he kind of like heard us, you know, like, and he got like a little bit teed off, and he said, hey, how would any of you SOBs felt if you had to run in the front of Hitler? And that's when we all said, oh shit, he done went to the Hitler plan. So we start getting our gears together and saying, hey, we're gonna play now. Life is on. And so during the Olympics, you know, Tommie Smith and John Carlos finished in their respective track events, first and third. And they got up on the podium and they put on the black glove and they did the salute. And then here come all of the Olympic committee and the Olympic in charge. They kicked them out of the commissaries, out of the dorms and out of the Olympics, and they had to catch a plane to go back to San Jose, in San Jose State, people protesting and acting really nuts. And so there I was, I had to play the final game, and I was nervous because Howard Cosell told me, like, what's gonna happen to you when you get back to Detroit? Those black folks are gonna be mad at you. And my nerves got shattered again. I'm like, oh, Howard. And then the coaches were like, why would you do that, Howard? He's a kid. And so you can see in the game itself, I make a layup and I run straight into the locker room, threw up, came back out on the floor in the championship game for the gold medal, and just kept right on playing. And we won the gold medal, and the Mexican fans and Americans, I mean, they just started cheering and people were crying, and because we wasn't supposed to win the '68 Olympics. We were supposed to finish fourth, I think, or third, but we won it. And all of a sudden they were calling off my numbers. And we have a new record set by Spencer Haywood, and he leads the world in points. And he also leads the world in rebounds. And he also has set another record in field goal percentage. And I'm like, I did all of that. And so it was really a cool thing. And then I walked up on the podium when they put the gold medal on your neck, and I just, all of this stuff that happened in my life and in my world, I just started bawling and crying. I couldn't stop crying. And I was thinking back. Now here I was 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, I was picking cotton. I didn't have a name. I was just called the N-word down in Mississippi. And here I am now, a savior for America. And I'm just on top of the world. We got the gold medal on my neck. And I'm looking at my teammates, and they was like, we did it. Young blood, you did it. And I was just saying, man, America is truly a wonderful place, because how can I come from this place at this fast time and to be an American hero? But I had one issue. I mean, like, what are they gonna think about me when I get back to Detroit? Because that Howard Cosell thing was in my head, like, oh, you know, they're gonna get you when you get back to Detroit. And so we flew in, Will Robinson and I, we flew into Metropolitan Detroit Airport. And lo and behold, when I got off, I had my medal on, and all of the black folks and white folks came out to the airport, an Olympic, you know. Wow, Olympic hero, and the mayor, the governor, everybody was there. It was just like, wow. What a wonderful country we live in.
African American men are 2 times more likely to die from prostate cancer.
But if caught and treated early, it has a survival rate of over 90%.
But it takes a team to succeed.
So do your part and talk to a doctor about getting screened for prostate cancer.
This February, the Atlanta Hawks Foundation will donate $250 for every assist to the Prostate Cancer Foundation.
Learn more at hawks.com/PCF.
And then I decided, well, right there, because we were pushing the idea, they were trying to push the idea that we need you to come home and play, not go to UCLA with Kareem or any of these people. You need to come home and play, because we've had a riot in Detroit. Our city got burned down basically in '67. So we need this uplifting spirit here. And you are certainly the uplifting spirit. And I came to Detroit, to the University of Detroit, with the idea that Will Robinson would get the coaching job next. And I played, and I averaged, 33 points a game and 22.5 rebounds. And I was the outstanding player of the year. And Kareem was the MVP. And we was All-American together. And right away, they reneged on the deal with Will Robinson. So I was really hurt and felt betrayed by that idea. When the draft came out, the ABA went after Kareem, and Kareem decided, no, I don't want to play over there. I want to play in the NBA. And he didn't take the offer. And so they then came to me. Hannah Storm's father, Mike Storm, said, well, look, we can pay you, and we will fight the case if you want to come into the ABA. And so I said, well, I can't stay here because they have reneged on Will, and my feelings are crushed, and I can't transfer, because if I transfer, it would, if I transfer to another college or university, I would have to set out for a year. So all of a sudden I'm in Denver. And they said, well, at the press conference, this guy could prove himself if he gets 5 points and 7 points and 5 rebounds. It would be great. And then we can go out and get all of the young players, like Julius Erving he wanted to come, George Gervin, all those guys wanted to leave, Moses Malone, all of them wanted to leave and come into the ABA early, but they needed someone to break down the rules. And so that year, I ended up averaging 30 points per game and 19.5 rebounds. I was the rookie of the year, the leading scorer, the leading rebounder, MVP of the league, MVP of the All-Star game. And I did clean floors just to let them know I was a handyman too. And so they said, oh, Jesus, we got to make you the highest paid player in the world. So they gave me this contract for $1.9 million. I'm like, yeah, I'm a rich bitch. But anyway, David Chappelle. Anyway, so I'm thinking, I signed the contract without an attorney, anybody. And I was like, man, I'm the MVP. They're going to have to take care of me. So then I got an attorney to look at the contract, and he said, this is a bunch of garbage. And I'm like, how is it a bunch of garbage? I get paid $100,000 a year for 4 years. And then the rest is deferred. He said, read this part here. And I read the other part, and I'm like, wait a minute. You mean I have to be in the employmentship of the Ringsbys until I am 70 years old? So it was like $1.5 million was deferred. And the way that we were going to derive that money was through the stock market. It was going to put $10,000 in the stock market. So when I get to be age 50, the money I would be able to collect $100,000 from age 50 to age 70. But there's a catch. I had to be in an employmentship of the owner of the team, which was a truck line. So I had to be in employmentship of the Ringsby truck to receive all of the money. And so We went in and said, okay, we're gonna have to straighten this out. I took my lawyer with me and my black self going in to talk to these hillbillies and these hardcore, I don't know what they were, but anyway. So we go in there and we're talking, and Al Ross is just talking. Yeah, we need to change this contract. You need to get this. And he looked at us and said, you know what? You get your nigger ass and take that Jew lawyer with you and get the hell out of my office. We got you on the contract. You can't go to the NBA. You can't go anywhere. You are here with us. We got you. And I said, oh, it's back to Mississippi again. I'm like, I'm a slave again. And so Sam Schumann heard about this, and he was the owner of the Seattle Supersonics. He said, hey, you come join my team and I'll pay you your salary, what the contract is worth, and I will fight the legal case. And I'm like, but I played already 1 year in the NBA, so why would I have to have a legal case if I'm already in a set precedent for playing? And he was like, no, the NBA have a 4-year rule that you must, abide by, or we can fight it in court. So I was like, well, yeah, I'll probably miss 10 games, So yeah, let's fight. And I filed for the injunction for the rights to play in the lower court. And the NBA and the NCAA, they filed, the NCAA was always under the level of we don't want to lose all of this money from players. And the University of Detroit was like whining like, oh man, we lost so much money, but we can't pay athletes, wink, wink. And so my first 10 days I was sitting in the hotel because I had a 10-day injunction, a 10-game injunction against me. And so I couldn't play. And then when I got the injunction to play, and I walk out on the floor, the announcer would say, ladies and gentlemen, number 24, this game is being played under protest. And you fans can throw things, do whatever you want to do. But that player, number 24, is an illegal player. And so I played, and then players would come up hurt and say that I did it because I was on the floor. And then they get another 10-day injunction. And then I sat. And then the next time I come back, they says, ladies and gentlemen, we have an injunction, because they went back on their injunction. And once we got an injunction, they came back and we have another injunction that reads, he must be out of the arena on the bus in which he came in here on. So they threw me off the floor, and people throwing real bottles, not that plastic stuff that's going on today. They threw real bottles and called me all those names that I heard in Mississippi, you sorry, you're killing college basketball, you're killing basketball as you know it. And I'm like a 20-year-old kid. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm just trying to play so I can get my mother out of the cotton field. Come on, let me play. And so, and the next time I got an injunction, just before I was headed to the Supreme Court, because I had to go through all of the court system, I got an injunction. And Cincinnati Royals, they slammed me with an injunction that says, ladies and gentlemen, he must be off the grounds in which this arena set on. So they put me out in the outer grounds in the snow. So I'm standing out there with my warm-up on. I didn't get a chance to put on my clothes because the injunction read, you got to put him out of here. I mean, this is just court battles and stuff. So you had to go figure out what was going on at that time. And so they put me out into the snow, and I'm standing out there, snow, just cold, crying. What am I doing? And then all of the legends of the NBA, they had been brainwashed that if this guy wins this case, you guys are going to be put out to pasture because we're going to bring in all these young players. So they were against me, and guys were hurting me when I did play. So I went through just this miserable hell. But again, because I'm from Mississippi, Silver City, Mississippi, there ain't no silver and it ain't no city. It's a population of 300 people. So it wasn't that harsh. But then I won the case, and they said, this case is won under the Sherman Antitrust Act because we can't stop a person from making a living. And then I said, oh my God, I'm ready to play. But the old heads in the NBA was like, yeah, let's rough him up some more. And then Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was Lou Alcindor at the time, he walked out on the floor and said, hey, I want to play against him. I want to show him that he ain't that tough. And so we got into we embraced at the half court line before the jump ball. And that's when Oscar and everybody said, oh, let him play. It ain't gonna hurt the game and stuff. Let's just play. And that's when I started to play. I had like maybe 15 games or 20 games left for the season. And I played a total of 30 games that year, going through the court system. And the next year, it was like a ball because I had the freedom to play. And the next year I had my freedom back, and I averaged 29 and 12 in Seattle, and was first team All-Pro and all of that stuff. And so it just continued to roll. And then eventually we got Bill Russell as a coach, and players started in Seattle with the Seattle Supersonics. They were backstabbing me and him, and I ended up being traded to New York. So I get to New York, I don't know anybody. I had my family in Seattle who had came up from the South, and everybody was there. It was like the right place. And then when I got to New York, I didn't know anybody, and I was just lonely, and I didn't have a girlfriend or nothing. And then I had a date set up for me. And then I went to Cleo's restaurant on 64th and Broadway. And there was the date that I was supposed to meet this girl from Atlanta, but she had brought her roommate with her. And her roommate had on this African garb, and it was like, and I kept looking at her like, wow, she's so pretty. And it was Iman, the model. And we just fell in love and got married, and that was my refuge. But I got myself lost a little bit because I fell in love, so I went away from sports for a minute because I was in love and I wanted to experience different things. And we traveled. I did all of the fashion shows and fashion weeks in New York and stuff like that. This is long before these players doing it today. And I had a wonderful time, but I lost myself a little bit with my basketball because I wasn't training as much and wasn't doing what I should do. And then after 5 seasons, I ended up in Los Angeles with the Lakers. And when I got to LA, I was really in the mood for some partying because we had Magic, he had just came in as a rookie, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jamal Wilkes, Michael Cooper, Norm Nixon. We had a squad. I mean, it was serious. And so I tripped over and I decided, well, let me just hang out a little bit. Let me go over to this Hollywood party. People I knew from television and screens and everything. I go to this party and they got all this coke and stuff flying around, cocaine. And so I'm thinking, well, let me taste it. And so I taste the coke, and not knowing that my family history is that this addiction was there in alcohol and whatever else. So I did coke that night, and I watched my game disappear because I think I was hooked that night because I hit that pipe and it did something to me, my metabolism, my brain, or something that made me feel like, you know, this is like something that's got you, and it grabbed me and it choked me. It was like a disease I had for that year. And at the end of the year, I ended up coming in there with 24 and 12, and then I dropped down to the 7 and 5 that I was supposed to do in the ABA, and was a shell of myself. So the NBA and the ownership of the Lakers decided, well, we're going to exile it. And I didn't get a chance to go to Dallas in the expansion, but they exiled me to Italy, to Venice. I was like Old Bro Rabbit. You know, down south, you heard the name of Old Bro Rabbit. When you trying to get into the brow patch, and he's always trying to get there. And so he said, whatever you do, please don't throw me in the brow patch. And so they threw me in the brow patch because when I got to Venice, I was playing 3 games a week at max, or 2. And my wife came over. She scheduled all of her shows in Milan and in Bologna and all throughout Italy, and also in Paris, so I could fly up because everything is so close in Europe, and I could take a train or whatever and hang out with her and go back and play. So I got myself together, and those Italians, man, they took care of your brother. They took care of this boy, and they loved all of the anger, all of the hate, all of the coke out of me, everything. I got my life clean. I learned to live with what I had been brought up with, because I was brought up in a good Christian home. Like the Bible was like you would not do anything because there's this almighty God watching you. So why would you even slip up? So I'm thinking, hey, back watching me again. My mom is watching me. So I ended up doing real well over there, dominating and then the NBA says, hey, you know what? We got to get him out of there because he's blowing up Italy in terms of everybody want to go to Italy. These players let me go over there. And so they brought me back to Washington, D.C. And I felt pretty strong about that because I felt my case was won at the seat of government. And now here I am back at the seat of government. So we had a great time in Washington, D.C. And lo and behold, in my second season, after we had made the playoff and did all these wonderful things, in my second season, my wife was in an automobile accident in New York. And that was like traumatic because it was like a real bad accident on her face. And it was distraught. And I also had her brother and 2 sisters living with me, and I had my young daughter. And they were in New York. And, sometimes the languages wasn't as great as it should be because they are from Somalia. And so I felt the need to take a break and come home to take care of my family. And I tried to explain it to Washington, and that, maybe it'll give me a chance to go into treatment and look at myself a little bit better. And they wasn't having it. So I left basketball for a while and thought I'd come back after a year, and I never made it back. And so my life has just been this thing of one of these days, if I do all of the great things in life and stay clean and sober, this is my 30th year in the program of sobriety, and I got a chance to learn about my family. Why was my brothers and sisters dying of alcoholism? And I began to go into the gene pool and understand what had happened with our family. And they go back to cotton picking days, back to slavery days. There was a lot of alcoholism in order to cope and to deal with life. And so I learned that. And lo and behold, my young daughters were looking at me going through programs and stuff. So one of them turned out to be a psychologist. Now she's a licensed therapist in New York City. And so I have 4 daughters, which I'm so proud of. They all graduated. I have 2 doctors, and I'm just proud. And then my current wife, I've been with now for 30 years. She's great, but she's a vegan. That's another world. So I've been in this vegan world for a while, but now I eat fish, and I'm just feeling grateful because today, all of a sudden, now I came out with this book. The Commissioner Adam Silver gave me a big endorsement with the book, and here it is. Today, The Jump did a special on me. Rachel Nichols did a special on me. It's just God is working these incredible miracles in my life, and I'm just so grateful to be alive and be well. And I always said that I didn't want to, because it was 3 of us that went to the Supreme Court. Curt Flood for baseball, Muhammad Ali with boxing. We were basically there at the same time. And I remember Curt, I spoke with him when he came back, and he left the country. So I did get a chance to stay in the country and play some ball after I finished the court case. But he left the country and he came back sort of like a broken man. And then baseball was like, bringing him around. And then just as he was getting his glory for what he had did and how he stood up to the system to change the game, he passed. And I always had that in my mind, like, I don't want to do that. I just want to, I'm going to stay holy as best as I can, and be the best person I can. I'm going to eat right. I'm going to treat people right. I'm going to do good and see what happens. See if good come back. Because my mom always taught me, you do good, boy, good is going to come to you. And so here I am today with so much good, so much love. And I was able to be the chairman of the board for the NBA retired players. I fought hard for our players, our retired players, to have health insurance. And lo and behold, Chris Paul, LeBron James, Steph Curry, the executive committee from the NBA PA, they jumped around and gave us like $16 million a year for health insurance, which has saved so many of our players' lives. And I'm just living my best life at this time. And I want to thank you all for joining me on this podcast, my very first. And it's just, I'm letting you know, it's going to be this way every week. You're going to get something really special. And we're going to be talking about things that are relevant today. And I must say, too, for the young players, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of the NBA and what they have done, how they have comported themselves. And I'm watching, because, the NFL uses my rule as well. They're going to be the next one to know about what Spencer Haywood did. So it's going to be these type of podcasts. It's not going to be like your regular, hey, here we go, we just do something. No, this is for real. This is the real deal. So I thank you for joining me on the first one. Peace.
Hey, LeBron. You've always been a person of history, and Spencer Haywood has been the person that you've spoken with and really tried to bring to the forefront. Why is his legacy so important, especially trying to get the naming of a rule changed?
I just think it's very important to highlight and acknowledge people who've laid down the groundwork for us to be in the position that we are today. And I think Spencer Haywood is one of those guys, along with Kareem, along with the Big O, along with Bill Russell, along with so many others that played in that era, that just laid a lot of the groundwork both on the floor and also off the floor as well, in order for me to sit here and play the game that I love to play. So as much as I fell in love with guys that played the game, I also fell in love with the stories that was behind the game, some of the hardships they had to go through in order to be in the positions they were. So he's one of those guys, and it's just all about respecting the journey, respecting the people that came before you, and that's, I've always been that way though. That's just who I am.
Change the world, change the game, never ever the same. This is a change. Change the world, change the game, never ever the same. This is a change.